After a surprisingly slow start to 2026, the biotech world has had a number of eye-catching mergers and acquisitions, and debatably eye-catchinger science. And usually these two go hand in hand. Exceptionally good scientific data means a company buyout for an exceptionally large sum of money. For example, when a company called ArcellX made a cell therapy with a 97% positive response rate against a rare blood cancer, it wasn't a surprise that pharma giant Gilead bought them for $7.8 billion. But here's the thing, Gilead already has a cell therapy, a similar drug in a similar space, and it's not doing too hot. Sales dropped 7% in 2025, and analysts are expecting it to drop another 10% in 2026. So the obvious question is, why go deeper into a market that's declining?
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
I'm Matty C, and today, we're gonna find out if Gilead is a genius or completely out of their mind. What's up, nerds? Okay, so here's what actually happened. On February 23rd, 2026, Gilead Sciences announced that it was acquiring ArcellX for $7.8 billion. More specifically, they acquired them for $115 per share, a 68% premium over what they were currently trading at. I don't want to focus too much on money here, but 68% is a lot. That's Gilead pulling out all the stops to send the perfect DM to that absolute bag. But here's the twist. The main asset that Gilead is buying, called anito-cel, isn't FDA approved yet. The FDA decision date isn't for another 9 months. That's lots of time for the FDA to not approve it. Clearly, Gilead is very confident about this approval, and that makes sense. This wasn't a blind date. These two companies have been strategic partners developing anito-cel together since 2022. Gilead already had visibility into their preclinical data, the manufacturing process, now the clinical data. But Gilead's existing CAR T business, the one that's currently on the market, has dropped in sales by 7% in 2025. Analysts are projecting another 10% drop in 2026. So what exactly is it about anito-cel that makes Gilead want to bet the farm on it? To answer that, we got to get into the science. Your immune system has these things called T cells. There are different types, but the most exciting ones are the ones that act like your body's assassins. They patrol around, and once their immune cell colleagues identify the baddies, things like viruses, bacteria, even cancer cells, T cells can destroy them. Now, T cell killing is very specific. It depends on what their immune cell colleagues flag and the types of proteins that are on the outside of the T cell. Cancer cells are super sneaky. After all, they started as your own cells and display surface proteins that basically tell your T cells, nothing to see here, totally normal, just move along. Despite there being hundreds of cancer-specific proteins the T cell could recognize. We just can't rely on T cells to find and kill cancer cells without a little bit of help. And this is where CAR T cell therapies come in. Chimeric antigen receptors. It sounds like a mythological beast, but they're actually much cooler than that. Scientists engineer the T cells to have a surface protein that specifically identifies cancer. The T cells don't have to learn anything, they're just born with it. Here's how it works. Doctors extract a patient's T cells. Literally, take them out of your own body. T cells are then shipped to a lab and are genetically engineered to express that chimeric antigen receptor, or a CAR. Using viruses, synthetic particles, a high amount of electricity allows the DNA of this new receptor to be put into those T cells. These T cells now have it in their DNA to express the CAR protein. Scientists take these edited cells in a dish and multiply them by the billions, then finally infuse them back into the patient. The patient now has billions of T cell assassins that have one job: to give the cancer cells
A nice bile right to the face. Or a punch to the face.
Think of it like a software update. Your T cells are the same cells, the same hardware, but now they've got new code. Code that says,
A nice bile right to the face.
That's high level. Let's get back to Gilead and ArcellX. Their CAR T cell treatment, anito-cel, targets a protein called BCMA, or B-cell maturation antigen. BCMA is massively overexpressed on plasma cells and bone marrow that have mutated into something called multiple myeloma, an incurable rare blood cancer that is historically hard to treat. Multiple myeloma patients need 4 different types of treatments just to live an extra few years. In particular, ArcellX uses this platform technology that utilizes a certain type of protein to be expressed on the T cells. This platform technology is focused around these hydrophobic proteins called D-domain CAR. They're small, highly specific, and very programmable, so ArcellX can put a metric ton of them on the outside of T cells to increase their chance of cancer cell targeting. But does that actually help patients with multiple myeloma live longer? To answer that, we have to take a look at ArcellX's most recent phase 2 clinical trial data. Called Imagine-1, 117 patients received a single infusion of their own cells that were re-engineered with anito-cel. Imagine, with 2 capital M's, like multiple myeloma. Certain patients were selected. They had to have tried 3 other multiple myeloma treatments that couldn't stop the cancer from coming back. Anito-cel was used as a last line of treatment. Let me read the stats here because they are completely bonkers. After 16 months, 96% of patients responded to anito-cel. And that's pretty broad. There are ranges from not making it worse to making it better, but they responded in some way. Progression-free survival, where the cancer doesn't get any worse, was seen in 82% of patients after 12 months and 67% of patients after 18 months. One infusion, your multiple myeloma is stunted for 12 months. And it gets better. 74% of patients saw complete or stringent complete response, meaning that the cancer was undetectable. If those numbers aren't sinking in, that's okay. Just try and relate that to if one of your family members had a rare blood cancer. How would you feel after seeing that type of success after just 1 infusion?
Pretty good. It's pretty good.
But I do need to pump the brakes slightly because context matters. First, we need to talk about the incredibly strong competition in this area. There have been a lot of advancements in CAR T-cell therapies for multiple myeloma recently. 98% survival for J&J's Carvykti and 72% for BMS's Abecma. This puts anito-cel in the top tier, but it's not uniquely dominant. Now, the second one's really important. Imagine-1 was a phase 2 single-arm study, meaning that everyone got anito-cel. There was no randomized comparison to another therapy, which, as we just saw, could be really tough to beat. But many are still staying positive, specifically because anito-cel could be dominant in 2 major ways. One is faster production time. It takes ArcellX 17 days to produce a dose of anito-cel. Meanwhile, their competitors takes around 30 days. In theory, that's almost double the number of patients you can treat in the same amount of time. Number 2 is fewer side effects. Neurotoxicity and something called cytokine release syndrome, a type of life-threatening systemic inflammation caused by CAR T, is very common in such therapies. And based on raw numbers, anito-cel has much less severe side effects compared to J&J's Carvykti, but these numbers are still very raw. A phase 3 trial that directly compares these 2 giants, lets them duke it out, is still needed. ArcellX has their phase 3, which is expecting to have 450 multiple myeloma patients, should wrap up by July of 2028, more than 2 years. That's quite a long time for us to see if anito-cel is better than the competition. But if I'm being honest, this ArcellX acquisition isn't just about these few companies or their competitors. It's about the entire cell therapy field. Right now, CAR T therapies are massively expensive. We're talking $400,000 to manufacture treatment for 1 patient, weeks to manufacture a single dose. Just as a quick reminder, this is the simplified process for manufacturing T cells. Each one of these steps has a whole rabbit hole you can go down. I mean, look at all this. Clearly, there are a number of logistical, technical, and financial barriers to make this accessible. Not to mention, most CAR T therapies are autologous. They come from their patient's own cells. Their own cells that are probably not in the best shape because they've received more than 3 rounds of other anti-cancer treatments. As of right now, CAR T is really only proven in blood cancers, what scientists call liquid tumors. The cancer cells that are floating around in your blood and your bone marrow, ones that are pretty easy for your T cells to circulate and find. But the more common type of tumor, solid tumors, they're an entirely different beast. These are the cancers that form a dense physical mass surrounded by a microenvironment that basically acts like a fortress. CAR T cells struggle to get in, let alone do their job. Luckily, these are actively being worked on. For example, many companies are developing these off-the-shelf, what's called allogeneic CAR T therapies. These are the ones where instead of using the patient cells, you use a healthy donor. The cells are likely healthier and you can store more of them in a central location. Costs would drop dramatically. Wait times would basically disappear, and the economics of the entire field could flip. What would be even better is making those CAR T cells directly in the patient. Remove the shipping and the storage issues entirely. Now, this technique is very new, and we likely won't see any FDA approvals for at least a few years, but it is certainly the next big step needed to make access to these treatments quicker and cheaper for the patients who need them. There's also a big push to use CAR T in diseases that aren't just cancer. Things like lupus, multiple sclerosis, other autoimmune disorders. By increasing the number of disease areas that this technology could work for, you increase the patient populations that could be treated. More types of patients means more types of companies willing to buy into this type of technology, which overall means a better financial ecosystem. Yes, $7.8 billion at an almost 70% premium is a lot of money. But when you're betting on what an entire field could become, that's not a gamble. That's an investment. For me personally, I do not hate seeing these types of deals. In healthcare, you do have to take these types of risks in order to see growth. It's something that we do not do in Canada nearly enough. And it's one of the biggest reasons why these technologies don't make it to the patients. I know I said earlier I didn't want to focus too much on money, but in reality, new technology, new medicines don't get created if there isn't the money to support it. Doesn't really matter how exciting the science is if the economics aren't also there, and that they don't cause more harm than good. Keep the patient side effects low, keep the financial burden low, and all of our skepticism will also be low. Either way, I think the cell therapy space is worth keeping a very close eye on, which of course I'll be doing, so be sure to subscribe if that's something you'd like to stay updated with. And I'd love to hear what you think. Long-standing partnership, but with no FDA approval in a declining market. Is it genius or silly? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because like always, I'll be responding to every single one, and maybe make a follow-up video for the really good ones. But that's all for me today. Thank you all for stopping by, and you stay classy, nerds.